Hi everyone, I'm Matt Andrew, General Manager of the Americas at Ekimetrics, and I'm here with Laurie Lamb, Chief Brand Officer at e.l.f. Beauty, or e.l.f. Brands. Laurie is the brand officer behind one of the boldest, fastest moving brands in beauty, a company that does things most boards wouldn't sign off on, and it keeps being right. I want to get into how you build that confidence, Laurie, and thanks so much for doing that with us.
Thank you for
So,
having me.
so maybe to start, e.l.f. does things that would make most boards nervous. To do that consistently, you need a lot of the leadership around you to give you that confidence and that trust to actually go and make those things happen. So how have you built that? How have you got to that point in e.l.f. where you can do those things that most other brands just wouldn't touch?
Well, I think one of the important things to remember is actually e.l.f. at its foundation has always been disruptive. In fact, it actually goes back to the DNA of the company and our ethos, which was rooted with a father-son duo that started this company in 2004. And they had a vision and a dream to actually make beauty accessible to every eye, lip, and face. And they sold premium quality cosmetics over the internet in 2004 for $1. So that sort of disruptive spirit of breaking into a beauty world that otherwise was very different at the time, nobody was really doing
Yeah.
e-com in this way, really set the tone of the company, right? Disruptive by nature, breaking through, agile, bold, not holding back, and experimental. And I think that has really helped to shape our ethos today, because today we're a 22-year-old brand, but we're agile. We've got a renegade spirit. We're nimble. We move really fast, right? Just like a 22-year-old would.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really sets it differently from doing things that do feel like it breaks a mold. And one of the things that we like to say at e.l.f. is that while others zig, we zag. And it's sort of been what has actually really shaped e.l.f.
Okay. And how as you're grown, how is that changing? Is it changing? How are you keeping that spirit as you
Yeah.
get into a much bigger organization with all the things that come with that as
I
well?
really like that you asked that, because I do feel that one of the biggest things in doing that is you go from a company that has grown as fast as we have. It's a really high growth trajectory company. You have to really keep that ethos and the brand code really clear. You have to know how to codify your culture in order for that to stay true, right? So 22 years ago, if it was disruptive and breaking new barriers, how are you still doing that today and breaking boundaries as you establish yourself to be a bigger brand, right? And one
Yeah.
of the things I have to say is that it almost feels like when I walked into e.l.f. 4 years ago, I walked into an environment that is super entrepreneurial, very scrappy. You know, we're big enough to do great things, but we're also small enough to be nimble. And that spirit actually hasn't changed in the last 4 years. And it's because we have such a strong culture amongst everyone in the team and such a strong ethos that is rooted in this purpose and rooted in disruption and disrupting norms and shaping culture and connecting communities. And you don't lose that thread.
Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about communities because
Yeah.
you've spoken about that before and
Mm-hmm.
how communities aren't just an audience to you; they really shape the
Yeah.
direction that you take. Like,
100%.
how do you listen to them? How do you bring that into the plans? Like, how much is it a voice around the
Mm-hmm.
table
Mm-hmm.
versus really centering
Mm-hmm.
the strategy and what you
Mm-hmm.
look to build?
Well, when you look at the core of it, our community actually has been there from the beginning. I'm going to go back to the founder story, because when they were selling cosmetics for $1 over the internet, they unknowingly unlocked what we call ratings and reviews today. And so it was already sort of built in. Somebody would say, I bought a lip pencil for $1, but I would love this to happen, right? I bought this brush. I would really love it. It did this. So it already had this ear to the ground, if you will, of hearing what your community had to say. And it became an iterative process of, I'm going to do better. I'm going to make the next product better because I heard that they wanted this, but they wanted creamier.
Yeah.
And so that also hasn't left the ground, because we always constantly, what we like to say is tune the e.l.f. in. And that's, I mean, it's a basic principle as chief brand officer. I love that, because you are letting your community really not only be your innovation pipeline, but oftentimes they're going to guide you and they're going to tell you what they like, what they don't like, what your interests and your wants are. And I think every brand marketer at the core knows that your community is the most valuable piece, and you have to realize that your brand or your service is in service to your community. So if you are putting them at the epicenter of your brand, you will be able to build campaigns, products, initiatives around them and anchored for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the ability to respond to what the community is looking for,
Yeah.
how have you kept that again as you scale, like as your distribution scales, your
Yeah.
the time it takes to ship products to Sephora or different distributors that you have around the world? Like
Right.
how have you been able to keep that agility?
The agility, I think, is in part of being this feeling like we're a bit of the underdog. and feeling like we're the startup brand in many ways in beauty. It kind of keeps you in this spirit of let's continue moving and let's not lose our speed, right? And one of the things that I think is beautiful when you come into a brand like e.l.f. Is that you work with your quality and speed. So you don't compromise on your quality and your safety, but you're able to do speed because you know that that's how fast your community is moving. And you almost find this phrase of where you're keeping the e.l.f. up with them, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of e.l.f.
Yeah,
terminology,
yeah, I
and
can
it's
imagine
part of
with
that,
the yeah.
part of the coding of your culture as well,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I mean, a great example of that just launched very recently is e.l.f. Hair. So
Yeah.
no longer just eyes, lips, face. You've gone into the hair market.
Right.
How has that come about? How's that
Yeah.
happened? What's that journey been like?
Well, I have actually spent over 20 years actually in the hair industry and professional products. So it was just a matter of time, I think, before e.l.f. was going to launch into this. It's really exciting because not only because of my background, but because actually this goes back to your earlier point. Our community was asking for this. Our community was looking for an opportunity for us to launch into hair. And we actually did a little bit of testing before we did this. So we actually had launched a hair gel, believe
Okay.
it or not. This was something that we launched exclusively on TikTok. It was taking our most, I would say, the number one SKU, which is also number one SKU in mass cosmetics, but also our number one SKU, which is Power Grip Primer. It is a product that primes your makeup to your face so that even when you're at Cannes, your makeup is staying on from your 6 a.m.
It's going to be working hard.
all the way to your 2 a.m. And I can guarantee that that is the case. It grips your makeup and you look dewy and it's fantastic. So I don't know how I'm doing today, but I've got
You're
it
doing
on.
great. It's very hot. I can tell
So
you
you
it's
can
very
attest
hot
to that,
today.
right?
Yeah.
So Power Grip Primer actually is an incredible product that our fan base they're fanatic and they're obsessed with it. And we had heard them say a couple things, and we said let's test this. So we put a signal out there, and we actually created a Power Grip gel. We took our gel and took our primer and manifested into a gel with a beautiful wand for application and a beautiful pomade gel, if you will, styling gel. And that product took off. We actually sold out in 3 minutes on TikTok. That was an incredible signal. In the first 24 hours, we had over 10.5 million views. So we knew we were onto something. The signals were really strong.
Yeah.
And so creating something that was called hair, eyes, lip, face, health, we said, what the hell, Fred, let's do this, was incredible to say e.l.f. is finally in hair now.
Yeah.
Right. So you're for your eyes, lip, face, for those who don't know, eyes, lip, face, e.l.f., that's the acronym for us. And it's incredible to launch into a new category and see that e.l.f. is so expansive and also very elastic in its brand DNA that it is able to go into these new modes.
Yep. So hair's a category with very large, very entrenched players. Like, how have you approached that with e.l.f. with the confidence to say you can enter this category and you can make something that's really distinctive in that space?
Yeah. So we went out with a very curated collection of 6 SKUs. That was a collection that was very intentional in the way that we wanted to break through. We wanted to make sure that we were delivering on our mission to make the best of beauty accessible to every eye, lip, face, and now I guess you can say hair or hair follicle, however you want to put it.
Yep.
But we went with a very curated collection, and also we did it in a very disruptive way. Back to the e.l.f. zigzag and the twist was we don't want to make this like a traditional beauty ad, right? We actually launched it with a campaign around Bigfoot. Why? Because Bigfoot has a lot of hair on him. So if you haven't seen the campaign, I can send you a link. But it's an incredible way to break through, right? With e.l.f. is now hair and Bigfoot is in the forest, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. There's still this, there's such a controversial Reddit thread around is Bigfoot real or not, right? Even my 8-year-old daughter is like, "Mommy, Bigfoot," right? She's scared to go on hikes in that way, and so this funny element was let's go right into it. And so we launched a campaign around Bigfoot, who discovers e.l.f. hair and discovers two beautiful influencers on their journey, or two women on their journey on a hike, and and Bigfoot takes center stage with the hair because Bigfoot discovered e.l.f. hair, much like our community will.
And so, many large brands are really focused on distribution first, kind of building the physical availability, and the kind of sales are coming from that. And you've almost taken the complete opposite approach of launching, kind of selling out and getting the pull from your customers. How have you gone about kind of getting that dynamic? Because it's completely different from how many large brands work.
It's really training your brain to listen to your consumer. I got my early training early on when I was 15. I actually stepped up to an Estee Lauder counter, and I actually asked for a job. And to my luck, the beauty advisor for Estee Lauder North American regional manager was there. And she said, "Kid, you got guts." And she gave me a job there. I had working papers. And anyway, that job, working behind the counter as a part-time job after high school, taught me how to listen, really listen to what the consumer wants. And when they're sending anything like $350 per transaction, you have a very discerning customer, but you also have to realize, what do they want?
Yeah.
And so that same formula has kind of taken me, even when we think about e.l.f., is tuning the e.l.f. in, is really listening to what they want, they need, what they desire. And most oftentimes it's, I want products that I can trust, that work, perform as they do, and also bring me as part of something. I want to be proud that I have it on my vanity. I want to be proud that I'm carrying it in my bag. I want to show it off my friends, and I want to tell them about it. And I think that's what's so beautiful, because you're seeing this community of creators, and not even creators, right? Trailblazers, or an ordinary mom who just really wants to show off what they're using and how they're using e.l.f.
Yeah, a brand that's not hidden away in a shelf, right? And,
Yeah,
and that's where the
100%.
user-generated content
And you're proud to
comes
give
out.
it. We actually found out how giftable e.l.f. has been, because people feel that they are savvy. They have hacked something with e.l.f. They know that they can get better quality with e.l.f.
Yeah.
And clean products.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole community, the user-generated content that comes around this, it's helping you play this kind of mix and this balance between brand and performance. And most brands are thinking about, how do I build my long-term brand, and then how do I have performance marketing in the short term?
Yeah.
And you seem to be able to straddle both really easily with the kind of the activations that you're running. Like how does that happen for you? How do you kind of make sure that you're building over the long term, but still seem to have this like ability to drive massive spikes in
I know,
sales?
it's like the $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
I think part of that is also, I mean, especially as chief brand officer, I kind of think about, how do you play the long game more so? How do you create something as a brand that people are feeling, and they feel with their heart, right? Of course, it's important to bring someone into your community and keep them there, right? Like the retention of one of our customers in our community and keeping them in is so important for brand love. And that's sort of what we're really keen on shaping, is making sure that when you come into the e.l.f., you feel like you've actually been here and you are a best friend to the brand. And because we're listening to, we're constantly iterating and doing things that are actually for our community. We pride ourselves on being a company that's by, with, for the people, and I think that's one of the elements that makes us different in how we like to be a best friend almost to our community.
Okay. And I think we're definitely seeing that play out in performance, right? Your influencers are 4 times higher than the benchmark performance that we see in our beauty base, and that link to the community must be such a strong part of that. One of the other parts of growth that comes with e.l.f. is you now have a portfolio of brands with like Naturium in the mix, and that international expansion coming through, and the Rhode acquisition, but the international expansion coming through as well. How is that changing the type of decisions that you're making? The way that you have to think about a portfolio now, and how you really drive international, and what kind of different conversations, different decisions is it bringing up for you?
Yeah. One of the things our president likes to say is that we work with global heart and local nuance. And having worked in different zone jobs in my past life, I will say it is really important to make sure that you have one global beating heart, and obviously as a brand message that resonates. But you also got to make sure that you're locally adapting to the community there, especially when you're a brand, again, of, by, with, for the people. You have to think about what's important to them. And how do I see myself in the brand itself, right? The cultural relevance that needs to bounce off of me and radiate from the brand to me, so I feel like it's a direct reflection of something that I'm really proud of.
Okay.
It all comes back to that.
Yeah. And because you want to grow international, like US has been the heartland, and it's where you've kind of started, and the growth has been so strong. And now international is this business.
Incredible strategic white space for us.
Exactly. And how are you thinking about how you allocate resource, how you think about the effort, investment, what stays local, what is kind of really important to protect as a global asset? How is it changing the way you think about what e.l.f. is, what it means locally?
Yeah. What's so incredible is that when you think about our social community and following, 50% of our followers are actually outside the US. But we currently have like 3/4 of our business actually in the US. So you can see that the global demand actually outpaces the fact that the rate of which we're actually able to open new markets. And when we do open new markets, we do take a very strategic approach to making sure that we are thinking about that consumer. For example, I'll give you one example, is when we launched in Germany, we actually found out that e.l.f. meant 11.
Yeah.
in German. And so we did a quick scrub of just how our German consumers were, community was talking about us. And they would say, "Your elf, like, it's elf von Zane, means elf out, like 11 out of 10."
Okay.
Right? Which is the best. It's like an A plus plus, right? And so we were taking that and we said, oh my God, let's build a campaign around Elf von Zane. So we did. We went in and we know also, from my German friends and the community there, ratings and reviews matter, right?
Yep.
Your testing, your safety, your security protocol. There's a technical element to that. And I think one of the elements we looked at was how do we actually tap into that the culture and the way that ratings and technical testing is so important, but how do we put our elf twist on it?
Yep.
So we created a lab with a scientist that rated 4 of our key Holy Grail franchises and gave them an elf on Zane rating, but also put them to Zany test. So, for example, in a mascara, the test was whether or not you can blink and drop an entire Jenga board, a human-sized Jenga board. And that was a way of actually showcasing our humor, our personality, in some ways, I hope people did see the humor and the twist in that, but also the fact that we do create products that have incredible payoff, right, and results.
Yeah, like a super fun way to bring that functional benefit, right, that comes out. I think this is a really good example of that community point earlier of 50% of the community outside the US. I didn't know that stat before. It's almost like, again,
the global demand is there.
You've built an environment where you're pulling demand from your customer base, and I think there's very few brands that have been able to, with the starting not that long ago, been able to really leverage community to build demand versus distribution as a first. And it's such a unique position to be in as a brand. It's really a privileged position to be in, I think. So if you had to name the one thing that gives you the confidence in the next bold call, the thing you'd point to before anything else, what's the thing that keeps you able to take those decisions and have that confidence to keep what's been working for you?
I think actually to answer that, it would go back to the center of what we are based around. And our brand is really in service of our community. And I think if we stay true to that, that's going to allow us to build things that are elfing entertaining. That's going to allow us to build things that at the center of culture and allowing us to disrupt norms, shape culture, connect communities, but all around this radius of what we built, a community that is rooted in purpose and rooted in also, I would say, positivity, inclusivity, and accessibility. And I think if we stay root to that core and our ethos of the brand, that's what's going to allow us to continue doing it.
Yeah. Okay. I think there are a few brands that have the strength of community, the passion for the brands, the love of that brand as e.l.f. do. So thanks so much for sharing how you've built some of that up as well.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for these incredible questions.
Thank you.